The Seven Dials Mystery is Chapter 14. The Meeting of the Seven Dials. It would be as well to pass over the sufferings of the next 4 hours as quickly as possible. Gundel found her position extremely cramped. She had judged that the meeting, if meeting there was to be, would take place at a time when the club was in full swing. Somewhere probably between the hours of midnight and 2 a.m., she was just deciding that it must be at least 6 o'clock in the morning when a welcome sound came to her ears, the sound of the unlocking of a door. In another minute, the electric light was switched on. The hum of voices, which had come to her for a minute or two, rather like the far-off roar of sea waves, ceased as suddenly as it had begun, and Bundle heard the sound of a bolt being shot. Clearly someone had come in from the gaming room next door, and she paid tribute to the thoroughness with which the communicating door had been rendered soundproof. Another minute the intruder came into her line of vision. A line of vision that was necessarily somewhat incomplete, but which yet answered its purpose. A tall man, broad-shouldered and powerful-looking, with a long black beard. Bundle remembered having seen him sitting at one of the baccarat tables on the preceding night. This, then, was Alfred's mysterious Russian gentleman, the proprietor of the club, the sinister Mr. Moskarovsky. Bundle's heart beat faster with excitement. So little did she resemble her father that at this minute she fairly gloried in the extreme discomfort of her position. The Russian remained for some minutes standing by the table, stroking his beard. Then he drew a watch from his pocket and glanced at the time. Nodding his head as though satisfied, he again thrust his hand into his pocket, and pulling out something that Bundle could not see, he moved out of her line of vision. When he reappeared again, she could hardly help giving a gasp of surprise. His face was now covered by a mask, but hardly a mask in the conventional sense. It was not shaped to the face. It was a mere piece of material hanging in front of the features like a curtain in which 2 slits were pierced for the eyes. In shape it was round, and on it was the representation of a clock face, with the hands pointing to 6 o'clock. "The 7 dials," said Bundle to herself. And at that minute there came a new sound, 7 muffled taps. Moskarovsky strode across to where Bundle knew was the other cupboard door. She heard a sharp click, and then the sound of greetings in a foreign tongue. Presently she had a view of the newcomers. They also wore clock masks, but in their case the hands were in a different position, 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock respectively. Both men were in evening dress, but with a difference. One was an elegant, slender young man wearing evening clothes of exquisite cut. The grace with which he moved was foreign rather than English. The other man could be better described as wiry and lean. His clothes fitted him sufficiently well, but no more, and Bundle guessed at his nationality even before she heard his voice. "I reckon we're the first to arrive at this little meeting." Full, pleasant voice with a slight American drawl and an inflection of Irish behind it. The elegant young man said in good but slightly stilted English, "I had much difficulty in getting away tonight. These things do not always arrange themselves, fortunately. I am not, no. For here my own master." Bundle tried to guess at his nationality. Till he spoke, she had thought he might be French, but the accent was not a French one. He might possibly, she thought, be an Austrian, or a Hungarian, or even a Russian. The American moved to the other side of the table, and Bundle heard a chair being pulled out. 1 o'clock S, being a great success, he said. "I congratulate you on taking the risk." 5 o'clock shrugged his shoulders. "Less one takes risks," he left the sentence unfinished. Again 7 taps sounded, and Moskarovsky moved across to the secret door. She failed to catch anything definite for some moments, since the whole company were out of sight. But presently she heard the bearded Russian's voice upraised. "Shall we begin proceedings?" He himself came round the table and took the seat next to the armchair at the top. Sitting thus, he was directly facing Bundle's cupboard. The elegant 5 o'clock took the place next to him. The third chair that side was out of Bundle's sight, but the American, no. 4 moved into her line of vision for a moment or two before he sat down. On the near side of the table also, only 2 chairs were visible, and as she watched a hand turn the second, really the middle chair, down. And then, with a swift movement, one of the newcomers brushed past the cupboard and took the chair opposite Moskarovsky. Whoever sat there had, of course, their back directly turned to Bundle, and it was at that back that Bundle was staring with a good deal of interest, for it was the back of a singularly beautiful woman, very much décolleté. It was she who spoke first. Her voice was musical, foreign, with a deep, seductive note in it. She was glancing towards the empty chair at the head of the table. "So we are not to see now. 7 tonight?" she said. "Tell me, my friends, shall we ever see him?" "That's darned good," said the American. "Darned good. It's for 7 o'clock. I'm beginning to believe there is no such person." "I should not advise you to think that, my friend," said the Russian pleasantly. There was a silence, rather an uncomfortable silence, Bundle felt. She was still staring as though fascinated at the beautiful back in front of her. There was a tiny black mole, just below the right shoulder blade, that enhanced the whiteness of the skin. Bundle felt that at last the term beautiful adventuress so often read had a real meaning for her. She was quite certain that this woman had a beautiful face, a dark Slavonic face with passionate eyes. She was recalled from her imaginings by the voice of the Russian, who seemed to act as master of ceremonies. "Shall we get on with our business? First to our absent comrade?" "Oh, to." He made a curious gesture with his hand towards the turned-down chair next to the woman, which everyone present imitated, turning to the chair as they did so. "One wish no, 2 are with us tonight," he continued. "There are many things to be done. Unsuspected difficulties have arisen. Have you had his report?" It was the American who spoke. "As yet, I have nothing from him." There was a pause. "I cannot understand it. You think it may have gone astray?" "That is a possibility. In other words," said 5 o'clock softly, "there is danger." We spoke the word delicately, and yet with relish. The Russian nodded emphatically. "Yes, there's danger. Too much is getting known about us, about this place. I know of several people who suspect," he added coldly. "They must be silenced." Bundle felt a little cold shiver pass down her spine. If she were to be found, would she be silenced? She was recalled suddenly to attention by a word. "So nothing has come to light about Chimneys?" Moskarovsky shook his head. "Nothing. Suddenly, no." 5 leant forward. "I agree with Anna. Where is our president?" "No." 7. "He who called us into being. Why do we never see him?" 7, said the Russian, "has his own ways of working. So you always say." "I will say more," said Moskarovsky. "Pity the man or woman who comes up against him." There was an awkward silence. "We must get on with our business," said Moskarovsky quietly. "No. 3. You have the plans of Wyvern Abbey." Bundle strained her ears. So far she had neither caught a glimpse of No. 3, nor had she heard his voice. She heard it now and recognized it as unmistakable, low, pleasant, indistinct, the voice of a well-bred Englishman. "I've got them here, sir." Some papers were shoved across the table. Everyone bent forward. Presently, Moskarovsky raised his head again. "And the list of guests," here the Russian read them: "Sir Stanley Digby, Mr. Terence O'Rourke, Sir Oswald and Lady Coote, Mr. Bateman, Countess Anna Radsky, Mrs. Makata, Mr. James Thesiger." He paused, and then asked sharply, "Who is Mr. James Thesiger?" The American laughed. "I guess you needn't worry any about him. The usual complete young ass." The Russian continued reading. "Herr Eberhardt and Mr. Eversley. That completes the list." "Does it?" said Bundle silently. "What about that sweet girl, Lady Eileen Brent?" "Yes, there seems nothing to worry about there," said Moskarovsky. He looked across the table. "I suppose there's no doubt whatever about the value of Eberhard's invention?" "No." 3 o'clock made a laconic British reply. "None whatever." "Commercially, it should be worth millions," said the Russian. "And internationally, well, one knows only too well the greed of nations." Bundle had an idea that behind his mask he was smiling unpleasantly. He went on, "A gold mine. Well worth a few lives." Said No. 5 cynically, and laughed. "But you know what inventions are," said the American. "Sometimes these darn things won't work." "A man like Sir Oswald Coote will have made no mistake," said Moskarovsky. "Speaking as an aviator myself," said No. 5. "The thing is perfectly feasible. It has been discussed for years, but it needed the genius of Eberhardt to bring it to fruition." "Well," said Moskarovsky, "I don't think we need discuss matters any further. You have all seen the plans. I do not think our original scheme can be bettered. By the way, I hear something about a letter of Gerald Wade's that has been found, a letter that mentions this organization." "Who found it?" "Lord Caterham's daughter, Lady Eileen Brent, Mauer." "Should have been on to that," said Moskarovsky. "It was careless of him." "Who was the letter written to?" "At his sister, I believe," said No. 3. "Unfortunate," said Moskarovsky. "But it cannot be helped. The inquest on Ronald Devereux is tomorrow. I suppose that has been arranged for." "Reports as to local lads having been practicing with rifles have been spread everywhere," said the American. "That should be all right then. I think there is nothing further to be said. I think we must all congratulate our dear 1 o'clock and wish her luck in the part she has to play. Hurrah!" cried No. 5 to Anna. All hands flew out in the same gesture which Bundle had noticed before. To Anna. 1 o'clock acknowledged the salutation with a typically foreign gesture. Then she rose to her feet and the others followed suit. For the first time, Bundle caught a glimpse of No. 3, as he came to put Anna's cloak round her, a tall, heavily built man. Then the party filed out through the secret door. Moskarovsky secured it after them. He waited a few moments, and then Bundle heard him unbolt the other door and pass through, after extinguishing the electric light. It was not until 2 hours later that a white and anxious Alfred came to release Bundle. She almost fell into his arms, and he had to hold her up. "Nothing," said Bundle. "Just stiff, that's all. Here, let me sit down." "Oh, Gord, my lady, it's been awful." "Nonsense," said Bundle. "It all went off splendidly. Don't get the wind up now. It's all over. It might have gone wrong, but thank goodness it didn't. Thank goodness, as you say, my lady. I've been in a twitter all the evening. They're a funny crowd, you know." "Damned funny crowd," said Bundle, vigorously massaging her arms and legs. "As a matter of fact, they're the sort of crowd I always imagined until tonight only existed in books. In this life, Alfred, one never stops learning."